I'm really excited to invite Kevin Achieng join us. Kevin is originally from Kenya. He studied a EMBA, so a part-time master's at London Business School, and he's here today to share his story.
I always encourage and always say that, education changes lives. And for me, I'm always happy to share my experience, to encourage others and to inspire many more. I got the admission, sent it to Prodigy, and I was elated when Prodigy said they would really help a huge part of the portion. The MBA really changed my life. I would say go for it. I know it's tough. I know education is expensive, right? Especially the big schools. When you look at those fee structures, it takes you back, right? It reminds you, man, we have a long way to go. But it is in that long way to go that you can break those barriers. You can start the journey and you can make it happen.
Hello and welcome to the International Student Podcast by Prodigy Finance. My name is Cindy and I am your host. Today I'm really excited to invite Kevin Achieng. Kevin is originally from Kenya. He studied a EMBA, so a part-time master's at London Business School, and he's here today to share his story. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, and thank you, Cindy, for inviting me.
I've never actually spoken to a student who has done a part-time master's. So I'm really excited to hear about how your experience was. But before we get into that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Kevin Achieng, currently based out of Canada. Have a family, have two boys, and happily married to my wife Elizabeth. And yeah, I always encourage and always say that education changes lives. And for me, I'm always happy to share my experience, to encourage others, and to inspire many more. I know there are many more behind us who are looking up and wanting to get to higher levels. And I believe education is the path there.
Amazing. Kevin, talk to us about how studying your master's has changed your life.
So when you finish university, your undergrad, there's always this notion of wanting to do a master's in a bigger school. It's always a balance when you start off your career, because you also, when you get into the professional life, you want to grow your career, but at the same time, there's always this nagging feeling of I need to go back to school, and it's usually very tough and difficult to balance. Now, I was lucky to join one of our good companies, Unilever, which has really good training. And before I know it, I was really sucked into it and I was growing and my career was doing really great. But whenever I would meet my friends or peers who had branched off and gone to study, there's always that feeling that was hitting me. And I started applying to, MBA schools. And it takes a lot of energy to get into it. And then there's always the finances that you look at it from the point of, okay, if I don't support myself, I have to stop working and go to this school and start surviving. Then as life would have it, you end up getting married, you have kids, and then that dream just starts shifting further and further away. Now, for me, it was different because when we first moved to China from Kenya, my wife, I would say accidentally, right? Accidentally got into a business school called China European International Business School. And she did an MBA there. And in that process is where now my urge to come back to school was born, right? Because she was telling me all about school, the experiences, the class lectures. And I was just like, I'm missing this. But then I was still in the dilemma because now I was the breadwinner. I was the one working. But when I did my research and got to know about the EMBA route, I was just elated because I was like, this gives me a chance to still continue working and have a balance of getting my education. And I decided henceforth that I was going to pursue it. So the tricky part came in because at that point in time, I was still in China and my rotation in China was coming to sort of an end. So when I got to know that I would be moving to Dubai, I immediately started looking at what are the options, and London Business School happened to be recruiting. So I remember flying into Dubai for my interview. And when I got in, I was very excited because London Business School is one of the top business schools in the world. And then there was the balance of, okay, it's very expensive. Will your salary earn it and still maintain your family? No. And that's when now you also start getting to know that there are companies like Prodigy Finance, which support young people to really actually go up. And that's how I ended up in London Business School. I got the admission, sent it to Prodigy, and I was elated when Prodigy said they would really help a huge part of the portion. The MBA really changed my life.
And what are you up to now?
So the thing is, with the EMBA, you get a global perspective of life. You get a global. They say. I remember we had a term. You become a global citizen because in that class we had, I think, 70 plus nationalities. That is, if you combine like the EMBA in the UK, who we frequently interacted with, but even the industries. So I came from a CPG industry. I worked for Unilever, and today I work for Kimberly Clark. But when you go into that class, you meet people from the banking, investment, mining, healthcare, education. And when you sit in that class and hear people give different perspective, it really opens up your mind. And it's in that space of your mind being opened that despite being in Dubai, despite having worked in China, Kenya, my vision was, okay, where else would I want to work? And North America looked really, really interesting for me. And Canada was offered a very nice route to come and experience and work here. And we decided with my wife to give it a shot. Again, given the sense of you met people who've moved from Canada and they give you the experience. And so when I moved here, I moved with Kimberly Clark. So maybe I need to go back one step. I remember when I graduated, I was finishing my EMBA in June of 2020, and this was during COVID time. And I remember receiving a LinkedIn request from a recruiter, and that's how I ended up in Kimberly Clark, because it was through that recruitment. And I remember the HR who interviewed me was like, we are very impressed with your profile, and we're just impressed that you even have an MBA at such a young age from a good school like London Business School. So we'd like to have you join us, And I moved from being a manager there to being a director in Kimberly Clark. And yeah, that has been the journey. But the other thing that I would say about the EMBA is it really gives you, I would say, the theory of the practical. So if you think about how we are all educated, it's normally the theory first. You're told this is what happens. This is what, like organizational behavior. Why do we motivate people? Why do we do this? How do you change strategy? What is culture? You do it in theory, then you're released into the world and you now go see it practically. But now when you go into an EMBA class, it's the reverse, because now these are things you see. And when you see the lecturer take you through, the professor explain to you some of these things, now it makes sense. Now you understand, so this is what happens. This is how the leaders think. This is how we're motivated at work. This is how to motivate my team. And it now makes it all, I would say, comes together.
So you're also kind of applying that theory in practice.
In real time.
Kevin, you mentioned something, earlier about the return of investment in your education. You mentioned that you got contacted by a recruiter and they were impressed with you having studied your EMBA. I really believe, and from speaking to students on the podcast, that studying your master's, whether it's a full-time master's or a part-time master's, really does open the doors to the world, like you mentioned, and it really opens doors to opportunities and to a global career.
Mm.
Do you think that if you didn't study your master's, you may not have been where you are at the moment?
Yeah. So how I always think about adding knowledge and growing is, there's this opportunity meets the lucky ones, or lucky ones meet the opportunity, right? It's about being ready, because if you think about the fact that why did you go to school? It's because you got to learn, and it's in that learning that you get exposed and you add on and add on. Now, did I go to school with the mindset of, if this thing, like, I have to finish it, and when I finish it, it has to give me this crazy big job? No, like, I went to add knowledge, and this comes as a byproduct, right? Because at the end of it all, when you go with that mindset of when I finish, I'll triple my salary, or then you might be disappointed, right?
Yeah.
It is the networks, it is the education that you get, and it is those networks and that education, because you'll be given situations where you'll go back and dial in and say, hey, what is the framework to approach such a situation? And that is what will set you apart, and that is what will propel you forward. So I strongly believe it's not a waste by any chance. It's not a waste because you get contacts, you get people, you see how people think differently, and it really opens up your mind from that perspective. And it's like when you go to school, are you sure that you go to school just so that you get a good job and live a good life? Potentially, no. In that going to school is where you learn the skills, is where you learn how to respond, is where you learn how to be
Yeah.
calm, kind. You understand emotional intelligence, what to say, what not to say, how to work with others. It's in that going to school. So that's what I would say. That the EMBA opens up your world. It gives you different perspectives. You've gone into a space where it's no longer theory, it's practical. Like you can see when I look at reports shared by big bosses of the company or even a competitor, you look at it from a different angle than when you just don't know what it's all about.
Wow, that's some incredible advice already. But in closing, is there any other advice you have for our listeners today, particularly maybe ones also from Africa who's looking to go and study abroad? What advice do you have for that listener today?
I would say go for it. I know it's tough. I know like education is expensive, right? Especially the big schools. When you look at those fee structures, it takes you back, right? It reminds you, man, we have a long way to go. But it is in that long way to go that you can break those barriers. You can start the journey and you can make it happen. That's where partners like Prodigy come in. That's where stakeholders, your family, your friends, your employer all come in, because when you have that dream, it's you marshalling all those forces, marshalling all that energy to help you achieve that dream. So it's not easy. When you're done, it is all worth it. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So take heart, connect with people who've gone ahead, learn from them, look at the traps or loopholes that are there so that you don't make the same mistake, but you get ahead faster.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kevin. As mentioned, you're the first person who's a
Yeah.
part-time master's. And so thank you so much for sharing your experience.